I won't have the stream up.
Gotcha. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Season 25 SFL Scenario Show. It is the SFL Commissioner, Cameron Irvine, here with you, along with my panel here. Fortunately for us and you, we only have 8 scenarios to go through. Typically, we have 16, but this wasn't our normal end of the regular season schedule, as this week was previously pushed back from week 8 to a new week 16. But you know what? It sure did pan out to give us one incredible end of season weekend of football. And we already saw that play out earlier tonight. If you missed any of the action from earlier this week, Fort Worth kept their hopes alive, beat Minnesota, dropped the legend out of the playoffs for the first time in their franchise history. Fort Worth's hoping that they have a path here tonight. By the way, you're seeing the standings right now on your screen with our first scenario plugged in, but we have 7 more to get to, and obviously this first one to break down. Earlier tonight, we had Arizona clinch a playoff spot by beating Queen City, although that was not easy by any stretch. Queen City gave them all they could handle. We saw Washington win another one at the buzzer. They keep themselves alive for the Western Conference playoff race. They now just need a Vancouver loss on Monday night, and they will win the West. Then in the South, plenty of drama as Mexico City held on to beat Albuquerque despite a late fourth quarter surge from the Adams, 30-16. And then Bossier City did, in fact, play spoiler. They beat Houston in a shootout 44-37, meaning that Mexico City has clinched the South. 3 divisions still on the line. Denver and Mexico City have clinched their respective divisions. Here with you tonight, filling in for Hunter Norwood in the top spot, it's the one and only Tyler Falk. Tyler, good evening, and thanks for being here.
I'm alive, awake, alert, enthusiastic all the time. Hi, Cam. It's good to be here. I'm here.
I'm glad you didn't try to say that 3 times fast in some sort of jingle, because I think it would have gone sideways. So we're
I've had to do that plenty of times as a camp counselor. So that's I've got practice. I could do it. Don't make me.
I won't. Trust me, I won't. Another person with plenty of practice in the as a director of league operations, Rochelle Colston is here. How you doing, Ray?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here to see where things fall. And then a very interesting party and someone that also loves to assist in league matters. It's the one and only Stephen Hacker with us tonight. Hacks, that mic working to say hi to the people?
I can maybe get it to work for a couple of seconds.
There you go.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening to you, Hack, and good luck to your Fort Worth Toros as you guys try to get in. Of course, Ray and Tyler are also a part of Carolina. Their path is simple. The Carolina Skyhawks get in with a win, and we'll break that down a little bit more here in a little while, but you can see it right now on your screen. It's going to end up coming down to strength of victory, and Florida at 350 and Carolina at 433. We're pretty confident that no matter what happens in the last 3 games, that strength of victory is not changing. That to have an 80th of a point at this point in a strength of victory tiebreaker is a very large margin that is very tough to overcome with only 3 games left on the schedule. So with that said, here's some of the tabs that you're going to see throughout the night. You're going to see our full schedule panel, and you can see that we're plugging in wins and losses for these teams to get our final standings. Then we have our common games calculator. Common games are a big deal when trying to break ties amongst multiple teams. And then you've got our scenario window, which you can see as Tyler is putting it all together. That we've got wins and losses, and we've got the teams and how everything shakes out, and then we'll have a tiebreaker window, which I'm actually going to add here. Just a quick programming second, but we'll get to that stuff here in a moment. So, all right, so our first scenario tonight is that Carolina, Pittsburgh, and Vancouver are your winners. So as it stands right now, we've got, in this scenario, we have 5 teams finishing at 9-3. So the first thing we have to do is we have to figure out who won their division, unless there's a head-to-head sweep that is involved. So, for example, we know that Mexico City won their division over Houston. In this scenario, Pittsburgh and DC also finish with the same record. If we go back to the team schedules, DC lost to Pittsburgh, which means that Pittsburgh would win their division and have the tiebreaker over DC, and then Vancouver in this situation would win the West. So Vancouver, Pittsburgh, and Mexico City would be our division winners. So the question would be, our first question is that did any of these teams sweep the other division winners? I know that Vancouver beat Mexico City, but panel, did Vancouver play Pittsburgh this season?
No.
No. Okay. No confirmed. So Vancouver does not have a head-to-head sweep over anybody. Did Mexico City play Pittsburgh this season?
No.
Nope. Okay, so by my count, Mr. Falk, I don't think that, first off, DC and Houston would have to have beaten all 3 of these teams. I don't think that happened either, did it?
Houston did not play Pittsburgh, no, so we're good there.
Yeah, and DC did not play Mexico City. So, yeah, there's no sweep that applies there. So what we're looking at is Houston and DC somewhere in that 4-5 range as non-division winners. So we're just going to put here division, and division. Okay, so now what we're trying to figure out, and trust me, folks, the first couple are always very difficult because we haven't seen these tiebreakers yet. We haven't ever broken these down. We're doing that live for you in real time for the first time here as we try to figure out how the playoffs are going to settle out. So Mexico City wins the South by virtue of their head-to-head over Houston. Pittsburgh wins the North by virtue of their head-to-head over DC. And Vancouver wins the West. So between Mexico City, Vancouver, and Pittsburgh, we have to figure out who would get the number 1 seed in that scenario. So we start with, is there a head-to-head sweep for any of those teams? And because Pittsburgh did not play Mexico City or Vancouver, no head-to-head sweep will apply. Now we go to common games. So we've got in the common games track, well, actually, we've got Houston and DC already pulled up. So let's break that first. DC owns the common games, but I've got, oh yeah, okay. DC owns the common games. They did not play each other. So it would be the Dragons getting the 4 seed and the first round bye in this scenario, while the Houston Headhunters, losers of 2 straight, would fall to the 5 spot, which is just a gut-wrenching finish for the Houston Headhunters to be 9-3 and not even get a first round bye, lose out on the division on the final night. Does that look good, Hack and Ray? Does that look right? DC and
Yes, sir.
4 seed on
4-5
common games?
is correct. 4-5 is correct.
All right, that's very good. So now we go to Pittsburgh, Vancouver, and Mexico City. We got to see if common games apply there. They're all the division winners.
They have 3 common games or 3 common opponents across the board.
Wow. Okay. And we've got a tie at the top of that. So Mexico City would be your 3 seed in that scenario on common games. Things shaping out not quite nicely for the Pittsburgh Riverhogs in this scenario. They still have to win tomorrow. So Mexico City, CG 2-1. Okay, Vancouver and Pittsburgh, they did not play each other. And once again, just to clarify for people, Vancouver beat Mexico City, but because they did not beat Pittsburgh, they cannot use that tiebreaker when there are 3 teams tied. So when Mexico City drops out, that win that Vancouver had over Mexico City now doesn't matter as much because they've already leapfrogged them. In this scenario, Vancouver and Pittsburgh each have 5-1 common games, which means that the common games won't do it, the head-to-head won't do it, which means that we have to go to strength of victory. And that tiebreaker is 491 for Vancouver and 407 for Pittsburgh. So that would mean that Vancouver would be your number 1 seed and Pittsburgh would be your number 2 seed. Vancouver with that SOV of 491. And Pittsburgh with that SOV of 407. And that's how that top 5 would shake out in scenario 1. Vancouver would be your number 1 seed and have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Does that look good, panel, in the top 3?
Yes.
If anybody has any questions in the chat, please tag me because I'm not necessarily looking at the chat constantly. That'll get my attention. Otherwise, we will keep it moving. Denver and Washington end up your 6 and 7, but Denver is a division winner. The only thing that trumps being a division winner is if you don't have the head-to-head, which Denver does not because they just lost it tonight when Washington won it at the buzzer. So Washington would get the 6th seed based on their head-to-head win versus Denver. Does that check out to everyone?
Washington head over Denver, confirm.
Yep. Even though Denver is a division winner, they don't. That does not trump head-to-head. As long as there's just 2 teams tied. So that's how. So Washington ends up in the 6th spot with a slightly more favorable first-round playoff matchup, I guess, depending upon how you look at it. All right, in the 8 and 9 spot, deciding who gets home field and who doesn't in this scenario is Chicago and Arizona. So we plug Chicago. Did Chicago play Arizona? I don't believe so.
No.
So no head-to-head there. Common games belongs to Arizona. So Arizona would get that 8 spot and host Chicago in the first round based on their common game record of 4-1 versus 2-3. That's a big one. Proving to be the difference there was Arizona's win over Charleston. Chicago lost that game, and Arizona's win over Sin City. Chicago lost that game. All right, in this scenario, it is Carolina winning. So I want to break down this scenario specifically. So Carolina and Florida would split their season series. They played twice. So then you would go to division standings. With that win this week, Carolina would go to 3-1 and drop Florida to 3-1 in the division. So they would be tied in the division. If you then go to common games between Florida and Carolina, you'll see that both teams end up with a 3-3 record of common games. So, 2 minds think alike. There you go. 3-3 as they both split each other. And so Common Games does not apply because they are tied. So we have to go to strength of victory, and that's where the 350 for Florida and 433 for Carolina comes in. And because 5 and 7 is a division winner, Carolina is going to kick out one of the 3 teams that are 6 and 6. That's either Sin City, Fort Worth, or Detroit. So whoever loses this tiebreaker will be overtaken by Carolina with a 5 and 7 record as the 12 seed. So between Sin City, Fort Worth, and Detroit, what does that look like? We can, if we just punch that into Common Games, we'll also get their head-to-heads as well. Sin City's first, Fort Worth, and Detroit. They actually do share 3 common opponents. Sin City did not play Fort Worth. Detroit lost to Fort Worth and did not play Sin City. So currently, no head-to-head can apply because there is no sweep. We go to Common Games, and Detroit is the team on the outside looking in at 1 and 2 Common Games. Detroit, in this scenario, would be eliminated. Carolina, as the division winner in the East, would get their spot, and Detroit on Common Games would be the first team out. That's a tough way to go. Then we have Sin City and Fort Worth, who once Detroit is pulled. Actually, I want to go back to something that we did earlier. Vancouver and Pittsburgh were tied with Mexico City on Common Games, but I'm not sure that we ever eliminated Mexico City from the equation. That could have changed the Common Games for Vancouver and Pittsburgh.
They were tied, I believe, at 5 and 1.
All right, just wanted to double check. All right, so now we have just Sin City and Fort Worth. How do their resumes stack up?
Sin City over the Toros.
Because they did not play. So Sin City 4 and 2 on Common Games. They would be the 10 seed. And Fort Worth's 2 and 4.
Yep.
So Fort Worth would be your 11. Sin City would be your 10. Carolina, by virtue of winning the division, is your 12. Detroit would be the last man out. That would be scenario 1. Anything that we missed there, crew? Anybody see anything?
Looks conky-dory to me.
Looks good.
Okay. All right, Tyler. The only change is that Sin City wins instead of Vancouver.
Sin City win it instead of Vancouver. Updating sheet. Sin City sheet is updated. This is in scenario 2.
You want me to copy and paste it in there, or are you going to?
I got it.
Okay. All right, here we are. All right, so in this scenario, we have 4 teams at 9 and 3, so all of them get a first round bye. Mexico City and Pittsburgh are your division winners by virtue of their head-to-heads. So the first thing we have to do is we have to figure out who wins that tiebreaker. We've got.
I'm sorry. You want Mexico City, Pittsburgh, and all the 9 and 3
Yes.
teams?
Yeah, Mexico's. That's a good point. No, I don't. Yeah, I guess put all the 9 and 3 teams in there. Put DC.
Then we can.
Put DC.
Should put
Houston
DC.
at the end. Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
Okay, so just to confirm, Mexico City did not play Pitt. DC did not play Houston, so nobody has a head-to-head tiebreak here. Between the four of them, they don't have enough common opponents, but that is irrelevant because Pittsburgh and Mexico City have the division winner tiebreak, and so they climb to the 1 and 2 spots. So let's just take a look at Mexico City and Pittsburgh. They have a tied common games at 4 and 1, so that would take us to strength of victory. And Mexico City is 463, and Pittsburgh is 407. So that would mean the two-time defending champions would get the number 1 seed in this scenario. I don't think the field wants to see that. DC and Houston would be your 3 and 4. And they did not play each other. DC has the common games over Houston.
3 to 1 to 2 to 2.
And we had already broken that in the first scenario. So we know that for the future. But in that scenario, Houston at least gets a bye. So Houston is cheering for Sin City to get a win tomorrow in order to lock down that first round bye. At least that's what it looks like. All right. So now we have the. Let's see. We've got the 5, 6, and 7. Now we know that Washington just beat Denver, but they also beat Vancouver, and they would be the division winner as well. So Washington, with multiple tie breaks here, would be your 5 seed. On head-to-head sweep, that would be your main applier there. Then Denver and Vancouver. Did Denver play Vancouver? They did not.
No.
So we go to common games, which, wow, they have 8 common games, and we're tied at 5 and 3. So Denver and Vancouver would go to strength of victory. Vancouver's at 490. Denver's at 427.
So Vancouver over Denver.
It would be Vancouver as your 6th seed. Okay, Vancouver's SOV of 490.
It might be interesting to see since they were both 5 and 3, were there any differences? Like, did they beat one or the other? Yeah, like
Just one. Vancouver beat Mexico City but lost to Sin City, and Denver beat Sin City but lost to Mexico City. And
so maybe that's some of the big difference.
And what's crazy about that, Hack, now that you mention it, is that Vancouver shut out Mexico City, and Mexico City shut out Denver. Those were two extreme blowouts in the schedule, and both of those teams end up with the exact same resume, essentially, outside of strength of victory, both with completely opposite results against the potential number 1 seed in this bracket, which is Mexico City. So that is a wild thing.
7 and 5s.
Yep, 7 and 5. Someone is going to get home field. Now Sin City is in the mix. We did the Arizona and Chicago were broken by common games because they did not play each other. But with Sin City in the mix, how does that look? Sin City lost to Arizona and beat Chicago, so there is no head-to-head sweep in there for those teams. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. They have 3 common opponents, and they're
2-1.
2-1. Holy smokes. Los Angeles, Vancouver, and Bossier City. Who would have thought? What an odd pairing. All 2-1, so the lowest strength of victory is Chicago 333, Arizona 405, Sin City 571. Of course, this would include a win over Vancouver, boosting that resume. So Chicago would be your 10 seed in this scenario. And then Arizona and Sin City played in the division. Arizona beat Sin City. So Arizona would be your 8, Sin City would be your 9, and Chicago would be your 10. What's interesting about that is that Arizona ends up in that 8 spot in both those scenarios.
5.
And then this was Chicago's SOV.
Lowest strength of victory, 333.
Sin City's 571.
Perfect. All right, so Arizona beats Sin City in the regular season, and then they would get to host them in the first round of the playoffs. Now it's, in this case, we're back to Carolina again. Carolina's going to kick out either Detroit or Fort Worth, and Fort Worth has the head-to-head over Detroit from Week 7. So that would mean that Fort Worth is the 11 seed by beating Detroit, and it would be Carolina who would end up in the 12 spots. Wow. For Detroit, not a good start for Detroit tonight. Coming into the night,
Detroit is definitely rooting for Florida.
yeah, for sure. Because then it all could change. But Detroit didn't. They beat Albuquerque, but they lost to Minnesota. They lost to Fort Worth. They lost to some teams that they lost to Baltimore, right? So Albuquerque losing really hurt Detroit. We'll see if Florida can give them any life, but I think Carolina will continue to push them out in the first 4 scenarios. So let's see. We're now to scenario. Let's go 4, Tyler. Scenario 4 is that Baltimore beats Pittsburgh.
Baltimore beats Pittsburgh.
Yep, that's the only change.
Okay. We are ready.
All right. So in this scenario, we have 3 teams that are 9-3. DC and Mexico City are the division winners. So we know that Houston is going to be the 3 seed. So Mexico City and DC, I don't think we've had them, just those 2 yet.
Tied SOV. Or tied common games, move on to SOV.
Okay, so that is DC 472. Oh, no. DC 472, Mexico City 472. So we go to strength of schedule. And Mexico City played the slightly tougher schedule. 507 SOS for the number 1 seed. Are you kidding me? That's got to be a first that SOS would ever have determined the number 1 seed. Holy smokes. Does that look right to everybody?
Tied Common Games, tied SOV, yep, SOS.
And they did not play. Wow. And they won, and they're both division winners.
Are you able to resize your spreadsheet there?
Oh yeah, I can see that.
You're not getting everything on the feed.
Thanks. One moment. There we go. Got it. And let's adjust that crop a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Thanks, Steven. All right, so Houston is your 3 seed as a non-division winner. And then, whoa, things get messy. Pittsburgh, Vancouver, Denver, Washington fighting for the first round bye, all at 8-4. Washington and Denver are your division winners. Did Washington play Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh didn't play anybody. So
No, they didn't.
So no head-to-head sweep there. Washington and Denver are your 2 division winners, and Washington beat Denver in a head-to-head. So Washington as a division winner and then a head-to-head win versus Denver would put them as the 4 seed. So then we would have Denver as a division winner as the 5 seed unless Denver lost to both Pittsburgh and Vancouver, which I don't think is the case. They didn't play either one of them.
Didn't play Denver.
Yeah. So,
Or no, didn't play.
Denver, that game tonight was the difference between, or could be the difference, I should say, between Washington getting a first round bye and Denver not getting a first round bye, which is absolutely wild. So Vancouver and Pittsburgh in this scenario are your 8-4 teams that did not win in the division. They did not play each other, and Vancouver wins on common games 5-1. The difference, well, there's actually 3 differences. But Vancouver gets the wins over Minnesota and Baltimore. It ended up being that Baltimore game all the way back in week 1 ends up mattering in that scenario. So Vancouver 5-1, common games over Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh would fall to 7 at the 8-4 spot. They were number 2 in both of the first 2 scenarios. That's a big difference for Pittsburgh. 3 teams at 7-5: Chicago, Arizona, and Sin City, and we know how that plays out. But just to be certain, in this scenario, is Chicago's SOV still 333? It is. Is Sin City's SOV still 571? It is. And Arizona still has the head-to-head. So that looks the same.
Confirmed.
And then now this gets a little interesting because you still have Carolina getting the 12 spot, but now 2 6-6 teams will be out. Baltimore is now in the mix for the first time in the scenarios as being a winner. So we know that Carolina is in the 12 spot. We just want to double check the SOV, 367 to 450. Still a wide margin in favor of the Skyhawks there. But now Fort Worth, Detroit, and Baltimore.
Detroit out on common game.
Detroit out on head-to-head sweep loss as well. That is your, because they lost to both of them.
Yep.
So Detroit would be your, Carolina would be your 12 as the East winner. And then Detroit would be your 14 on head-to-head sweep loss. And then it's a matter of who wins between Baltimore and Fort Worth.
Baltimore.
Whoa. By a game. The difference being wins over Albuquerque and Washington. Wow. So Baltimore would get the 11 spot, and Fort Worth in that scenario would be out. Does that look right to everyone?
Confirm.
Scenario 4 is the scenario of you can't keep a champion down. Mexico City, the two-time defending champs, gets the 1 spot. Baltimore sneaks in at the 11. They would play Vancouver in the first round in that scenario. How about Pittsburgh, Chicago in the first round in that matchup? Denver, Carolina. Interesting. Carolina right now could play Houston, Washington, or Denver in these scenarios. All right, now to scenario 3, Tyler. The only difference is that Vancouver beat Sin City. Well, Fort Worth's not in must-win mode, Mark, because they've already played. They do not control their fate at this moment. And,
Scenario 3, correct?
Yep. Let's see what happens with another Baltimore win. And I understand that I'm going to be going off the page here just a little bit. We're good again. All right. In this scenario, we are back to Houston, D.C. Well, now we've got Vancouver in here. This is the first time we've had these 4 teams together, at least initially. Vancouver is a division winner. D.C. is a division winner. Mexico City is a division winner. So
Houston's not.
Say again?
Houston's not.
But Houston is not. So they would be your 4. Then it's Mexico City, Vancouver, and D.C., which we have not had yet. At least it doesn't appear that way. So what are we looking like in our common games? We don't
Not enough common games.
Don't have enough. Vancouver's win over Mexico City cannot apply because they lost to D.C. Interesting. D.C. did not play Mexico City, but beat Vancouver. So, it's just so close, but none of those can apply. So we've got to go to the lowest strength of victory in this scenario. That is D.C. 481, Mexico City 472, Vancouver 500. Mexico City would be your 3 seed. Wow. 472 SOV, leaving DC and Vancouver fighting it out for the number 1 seed.
DC head-to-head.
And DC won the head-to-head, meaning the DC Dragons would be your number 1 seed with a negative point differential, I might add.
What?
Yes. The DC Dragons with a negative 11 point differential would be your number 1 seed in scenario 3. Now that's a first. That would be a first. Wow. Vancouver is the 2 spot. And I should put their, let's see, they were 500 SOV. I'm sorry to put you on blast, Esther. It's such a wild stat, and that would be incredible. So right now, Mexico City has the best track of getting the number 1 seed, but DC and Vancouver also have a path. Pittsburgh, Denver, and Washington are 8 and 4. Pittsburgh is not a division winner, and Washington beat Denver.
Well, there you go. That was easy.
We need to make sure that Denver did not play Pittsburgh. Just double checking. Okay.
Did not.
Okay. Then we're back to Chicago and Arizona at 7 and 5. We know how that plays out. Common Games goes to Arizona. And then, oh my. Carolina is going to kick. Well, I guess we did need a 15. Carolina is going to kick 3 teams out.
No, we can just delete to floor. Well,
You might be right, actually. Yeah, I think you're right. So Carolina. As the East winner. Sin City, Fort Worth, Baltimore, Detroit. Now, they don't have nearly enough
Nope.
common games. Sin City did not play Fort Worth. Detroit lost to Fort
Yeah.
Worth, lost to Baltimore, did not play Sin City. So the head-to-head sweep does not apply. So we go to lowest strength of victory. Sin City 556. Fort Worth 347, Detroit 347, and Baltimore 500. Fort Worth and Detroit both have the lowest SOV, but Fort Worth beat Detroit, which means that Detroit is your 14. Then we start over again. And we see that Fort Worth is out on common games. These teams did not play each other in any capacity. So it's Fort Worth out on common games in the 13 spot. That means that Baltimore and Sin City would fight for supremacy, and Sin City has the common games.
Yep.
Detroit is out on SOV, which is 347, and head-to-head loss to Fort Worth. And then
The only thing we really didn't confirm here was the Arizona-Chicago common game. Like if that was actually 4-1 or 2-3.
I can run that quick. Arizona, Chicago. Still 4-1, 2-3.
2-3, yes.
Thanks, sir.
we said that Fort Worth was 1-3 in common games.
I believe so. Double checking. Correct.
Yeah.
1-3.
Okay, and then Sin City was
4-3 to 3-4.
Okay. Sin City would be your 10. Baltimore would be your 11. Baltimore played Denver. How about a battle of champions there? Yeah, Tyler?
Yeah, nothing.
Yes, that is correct, Mark Lopez. In scenario 3, Vancouver won the West. Washington did not. That is actually an interesting point. So, because they are all 8-4, Washington would need the head-to-head sweep over Denver. Over Denver and Pittsburgh. Washington did not play Pittsburgh. Therefore, Washington's win over Denver does not apply. Denver's division win applies. Or division winning status would apply in that case. Very good catch, Mark. Does everybody confirm that on the panel? Washington needs a head-to-head sweep in order for that win over Denver to apply, because Washington
They
in this
don't have it.
scenario is not a division winner.
Confirm.
No, that's right.
So then we go to Washington and Pittsburgh, which I don't think we've seen that tonight.
Pittsburgh gets a good
Thank
win,
you.
5-2 common game over to 4-3 Washington.
So that drops Washington to the 7th spot. That's why we do it live, folks. So that drops Washington to 7. Washington is a 4, a 5, a 6, or a 7 in these early scenarios. And Washington would take on Sin City in the 7-10 matchup. Pittsburgh and Baltimore would be a rematch of this weekend, of tomorrow's contest. And Denver back in the 5 spot to potentially take on Carolina in the first round of the wild card. Does everything look right with the first 4 scenarios, gentlemen and lady?
Yes.
Okay, because we just Mark caught us out on 3. I'm looking over at 4. Because the Trident and the Nightwings are both division winners, that's just a head-to-head matchup between them. Vancouver and Pittsburgh are common games, so nothing crazy here. The reason why this was messy
Is
is
Vancouver
because
won it.
Vancouver won. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we
Yep,
were
yep, yep.
we were looking at it. It's the same as scenario 1 that Washington beat Denver, even though they but with Pittsburgh thrown in the mix, Denver's division winning status ends up being more relevant because there's no head-to-head sweep at play. There's no head-to-head
Copy.
at play at all.
Copy.
So if that, Denver gets that 5. Okay, so we just did 3. So your only change, we're going to 7 now, Tyler. Your only change now is that Florida beat Carolina.
No. Going to 7. Okay. Should be good to go.
Okay. Houston, D.C., Mexico City, Vancouver. That is the same as scenario 3, although we're going to double check all those tie breaks. Because Houston is still a non-division winner, but we have to check SOVs to make sure that those are still the same. Those were very close last time. D.C. and Mexico City are both 472, and Vancouver is 500, so it is the same. In that it's not. Yeah. Mexico City. Well, okay. Why is my mind playing tricks on me here?
03, we did. Maybe maybe you meant to do SON. No.
Vancouver.
Because earlier,
500.
Mexico City ended up in the 3 spot. Is it because did DC have the tougher schedule the first go around, or did we do that backwards? Did I put should I have put DC at 3 in scenario 3 instead? Because of the weaker schedule? Oh no, that was in scenario 4.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Okay, all right. My fault. So scenario 4, DC and Mexico City were tied at SOV, which they are currently now. So DC's weaker SOS at 479 puts them underneath Mexico City.
In this one, it's SOV,
Not SOS.
not SOS.
Well, we
Because-
have three teams at the top, and two of them have the same SOV, the worst SOV. So, in order to break the tie between DC and Mexico City, we would have to go to SOS, in which case DC has the worst strength of schedule, so DC would be your 3 seed. Am I crazy?
My guess is because Florida won. Did
So
DC play Florida? No, but they played Carolina, and Carolina gets a worse record, so it knocks down the SOV for DC.
yeah, we didn't make a note in scenario 4, which I wish I did, on the SOV, because they were tied. That's why we went to SOS. They're again tied at 472.
It was 472 before.
We can run it back and double check here in a second. Do you want me to go quickly change that here in the back end?
No, we'll circle back to it.
Okay, I'll make a note of it.
Yeah. Okay, so Mexico City had a 507 SOS. So because DC has the worst schedule resume between the two, they would be the 3. And then Vancouver hammered Mexico City in prime time, which would get them the number 1 seed ultimately.
Mhm. Yeah. No.
I agree.
No.
Vancouver wins on resume.
So Denver, the division winner.
Denver was asking in scenario 2, while we didn't do head-to-head, isn't the next step division winners then common games? Talking about Denver. So Washington beat both Vancouver and Denver, which is why Washington gets the 5 spot. And then the Denver-Vancouver tie was broken down all the way to SOV, in which case Denver's was the worst.
Washington is also division winner in this scenario as well. Or Washington in scenario 2 is the division winner. So we were talking about how they had multiple tie breaks.
Correct. Yeah. They had both of those. All right. So scenario 7 between Pittsburgh, Denver, and Washington. We saw this in scenario 3, but we're going to double check everything. Washington's win over Denver cannot apply because they don't have a head-to-head sweep. And Denver is the only division winner of these two because DC and Vancouver won the other divisions. So then it goes to common games, in which case Pittsburgh has the 1-game edge over Washington. The strength of victories and the strength of schedules change in every scenarios, but the common games don't, because the common games are still just the opponents that they played. So we can move those tie breaks from one place to the next, as long as it's still those same 2 tied teams. But it's the SOV and SOS that constantly change with every change in result. Pittsburgh gets the 6, Washington gets the 7. Chicago and Arizona, we've seen this play out a number of times tonight. Arizona on common games over Chicago, 4-1 to 2-3. Now we have Florida in the mix. So you still have Florida's not necessarily guaranteed the 12, but they are guaranteed a spot. And that, folks, is a very curious case that you might see play out in real time right here on the air, because Florida gets a spot, but they must be included in all of the tie breaks in like between 10 and 14. Like we have to include them, which means that division winners go above non-division winners unless there is a head-to-head sweep by someone, by all of these teams. And if there isn't, Florida is the 10 seed because they won the division. Does that check out with everyone?
Tracks.
Yeah.
Currently, the only team that could potentially do that is Baltimore. Nobody else played Florida.
Yeah, but Baltimore lost Florida anyway. Yeah, Florida did not play Detroit. They beat Baltimore. They did not play Fort Worth, and they did not play Sin City. Florida, as the division winner, is your 10 seed for winning their division. So that doesn't necessarily help Detroit because we're back to Detroit, Fort Worth, Baltimore, and Sin City. We're back to that tiebreaker. Now, the SOVs could have changed. Let's see if Detroit can stay alive.
Fort Worth and Detroit tied at 347.
3-7.
Yeah, Baltimore's got a little worse, but otherwise not much change. And so we're right back to where we were with Detroit being the 14 spot.
I think that Detroit, Fort Worth, and Florida all have the same SOV.
Yeah, Fort Worth still at 347 would still lose out on common games, which would put
Sin City.
Then Sin City over Baltimore in common game.
Yep.
Yep.
4-3 and 3-4. We've seen that before too.
Yep. So that Fort Worth and Detroit not able to boost that resume. And just checking here, because the only difference was that Florida won instead of Carolina, and because Fort Worth didn't play either Florida or Carolina, it didn't affect them. It didn't do anything to them. Detroit's in the same boat. They did not play Florida or Carolina, which means that result doesn't have anything to do with them. So for a team like Detroit, that's really, really bad news. Fort Worth already has at least a 25% path in. But for Detroit, they right now are it's looking bleak because in all of these other scenarios, Florida is going to be a 6-6 division winner. So we'll see if Detroit definitely needs Baltimore to lose. That's for sure. We'll see what happens when we get to scenario 5 and 6. Does everything look good on 7, y'all?
Everything tracks.
Baltimore would be your 12 in this case.
Another clash of
Yeah.
champions.
Yep. Okay. Scenario 8, the only difference, Tyler, is that Sin City beats Vancouver. It might be a win and in scenario, Mark, for Baltimore. Just kind of looking at things. We'll see. We're about to find out here in scenario 8.
Scenario 8's good to go.
All right, thank you, Tyler. Houston, DC, and Mexico City are your 3 9-3 teams. We saw that in scenario 4. So in scenario 4, Houston did not win the division. Mexico City and DC did not play each other. Their common games were the same. So we went to SOV, which was tied. And it's not tied anymore. Mexico City has the better SOV over DC, so they would still get the number 1 seed 472 to 463.
Close. Wow, that's close.
Yeah, very close. I mean, we're talking
And
like
that was the
20
thing.
game difference.
Hundreds.
That was the thing we want to
Thousands.
check for this
Yeah,
up here.
for scenario 4, which we could do, Tyler. Oh yeah, I like that you just did that. Okay, we'll come back to it.
Yep.
All right, so Mexico City and DC. Can we double check the common games for them? I just
For
want to
Mexico City, DC.
I don't have it. I don't have it listed, and I meant to do that.
Common
Okay.
games is tied 3-2 to 3-2.
All right, I'm just gonna. That is a nail biter.
We're talking like 9,000 at one point here.
Yeah. What's crazy is that those two played in the Season 5 championship, and they've been tussling at the top of the standings here 10 years later in Season 25. All right, Vancouver, Pittsburgh, Denver, Washington. This was also the same in Scenario 4. Washington and Denver were the division winners. And Washington beat Denver. So Washington would be your 4, Denver would be your 5, and Vancouver had common games over Pitt.
Confirm.
Then
thing.
Chicago, Arizona, and Sin City. That was back in Scenario 2. We did have an SOV situation, so we need to make sure that that is still worse for Chicago. 333, 405, and 571, most definitely. So then Arizona wins on their head-to-head over Sin City, and that stays the same. Now, in this case, Florida is your 11 seed as the division winner.
Detroit out on common game, 2-1 to 2-2, or 2-1 and 2-1.
Yeah, they're out on head-to-head sweep because they lost to both of them.
Also confirm.
That would be head-to-head sweep loss. And then
Baltimore and Fort Worth.
Fort Worth. Be Fort Worth,
Same thing.
Baltimore, and oh yeah, just them. Baltimore
4-3,
and
3-4.
Uncommon.
Saw this in Scenario 7, just different seating. This would knock Fort Worth out.
Well, again, just like in scenario 7.
Common games 4-3 and 3-4.
Man, and they didn't play each other. That's a real win for Baltimore. It looks like winning in for them. Because if they lose, they're 5-7. So Baltimore winning in is confirmed. That is a huge game. If Pittsburgh wins tomorrow, they win the division. And so far, that means the number 2 seed. If they lose, they will play in the first round of the wild card, and Baltimore is in the playoffs. Wow. And if you're Denver, sitting at that 5 seed, you're thinking, if only we could have just beat Washington in the final seconds. Because who wants to play Baltimore in the first round of the playoffs?
Not me.
Man, that would be something. Okay, so that is Scenario 8. Honestly, the next closest one, Tyler, is Scenario 4. We should just go back and double check.
Well, I was already moving on, but
Well, okay,
I'll retrack.
Okay, my bad.
All good. I was going Scenario 6, but let's see. We have Sin City win,
Baltimore win.
Baltimore
Carolina
win, Carolina win.
So what we wanted to make a note of, the common games were tied, and we wanted to note the SOV tie. There it is, 472. Which, if you look down in scenario 8, it's different.
Yeah.
That's what was throwing me off. So in scenario 8, DC's SOV gets worse. The only difference is that Florida won over Carolina. What that tells me, there it is. DC beat Carolina in week 1. That's the difference. When Carolina loses, it bumps DC's strength of victory down because Carolina is worse. Now, at the end of the day, Mexico City won both tiebreakers anyway, but that's why the SOV changed from both being 472 to one only being 472 and the other being 463 because DC got a worse resume when Carolina lost that game to Florida. That's why you see the difference there. So, hey, at least we know our sheet is working. But as you mentioned, Ray, that .009, that literally is just one game. Just one game that makes the difference there. All right, so we're good on 4 and 8, Ty. So you can feel free to proceed to 6 if you'd like.
Going to 6, which means that's a let's see, it's a Sin City win, that's a Pitt win, and a Florida
win. Excuse me.
Ready to go.
All right. Now, this is going to be most like 2. The only difference is that Florida won. So when we're looking at scenario 2, we've got 4 teams at the top at 9 and 3. We've got Mexico City and Pittsburgh winning their divisions. DC and Houston right behind them. We did have a SOV play out for that number 1 seed. Let's confirm that that is still true. Mexico City 463, Pittsburgh 398. Pittsburgh's resume actually gets worse there, again, by .009 percentage points. So you're talking about one game being the difference, Florida or Carolina. Let's check Pittsburgh's resume. They beat Carolina. That's the difference. We saw that with DC as well. So Mexico City's your number 1 seed, followed by Pittsburgh. Then DC and Houston, your 2 non-division winners. Common games for DC makes the Dragons the 3 seed. As Mark Lopez pointed out, as of this moment, it looks like DC has a first-round bye in all scenarios with just 1 to go. Now we got Vancouver, Denver, and Washington at 8 and 4. That was the same as scenario 2. We had Washington on a head-to-head sweep as the 5 seed. And then we had Vancouver and Denver tied. I did not make a note of their common games, Tyler, but I believe they were tied.
5 and 3 to 5 and 3.
All right, let's put that note in. SOVs.
Yep. Denver's new SOV is 438
to 490. There's that slight bump in percentage points, likely due to a Florida or Carolina win on the resume. Denver lost to Carolina and beat Florida, so Florida winning helped strengthen their resume. Not enough, obviously, as Denver would still be your 7. Arizona, Chicago, and Sin City, 8 to 10.
Scenario 8.
And Chicago still at 333. Arizona still way behind. Sin City still way ahead. But Arizona on head-to-head gets the 8 spot. Now you've got Florida as the... poor Detroit. Florida's going to be your... Well, Detroit is automatically out on head-to-head sweep loss. Whoa, what did I do?
Florida did not play Detroit.
Oh, they did not play Detroit. Interesting. My fault. Oh, okay. Well, they're still screwed because Florida is going to get in as a division winner over Detroit. Even if they don't, it doesn't. We'll see here in a moment. But, yeah, Detroit is out because, well, hold on. SOV?
If Florida is in on division, then it would be head-to-head matchup between Detroit and Fort Worth. No?
I agree. Unfortunately for Detroit, because Detroit actually has the better SOV over Florida, but Florida gets the automatic spot because they are a division winner and no one has a head-to-head sweep in this tiebreak. Because neither one of them played Florida. So Florida is your 11 seed. Yep. And then Detroit is out on their loss to Fort Worth. That is brutal. Because Detroit actually had a better SOV over Florida, which would have bumped Florida out, but Florida gets the spot because they won the division. By the way, next year, it's looking like there won't be any 14 divisions. Spoiler alert. So probably won't have to deal with this in that 12 spot next year. So just throwing a little teaser out there. Does that look good to everybody? Scenario 6?
Yes.
Okay, and then finally, Scenario 5. The only change, Tyler, is that Vancouver beat Sin City. It'll look a lot like Scenario 1, I think.
Good to go.
Okay, and we have 5 teams at 9 and 3.
Confirm.
3 of those teams are division winners. Vancouver, Pittsburgh, and Mexico City. I believe that Mexico City was out on common games the last time we looked at that. Yep.
Confirm.
And then we went to SOV. Pittsburgh is 398. Vancouver is 491.
Correct.
And Vancouver is your number 1 seed. Denver and Washington. That is a simple head-to-head win for Washington, which trumps Denver's division win. Chicago and Arizona on common games. Then it is Florida as the 10 seed, as the division winner. And we're back
Detroit
to
out on a common game.
that was scenario. We've seen that before.
Scenario 1. Except that's with Carolina, so it just jumps in City and Toros have just jumped ahead of Carolina.
Like that. Detroit is out on common games, and then Sin City has the tiebreak, but Florida is the 10 seed because they won the division. That appears to be your scenarios. The loser of the night is Detroit.
And on that one, it's so there. I thought it was the not common game, head-to-head sweep. So I guess that doesn't apply. Well, it might because Florida is the new player there, not Carolina, right? From scenario 1. So is there a head-to-head sweep between any of the 6 and 6 teams right here?
Detroit,
No,
Sin City,
no one
Florida.
played Florida.
But that's
Okay.
I'm
So
glad you
then
said something. Hack.
Florida's in. Now there's a head-to-head between the other 6 and 6 teams. right?
And-
Because now
and-
Florida flooded in. Now you have to break 11, 12, 13, right?
Yeah.
Fort Worth.
Yeah,
lost,
Hack's right.
Sin City.
Yeah, there's different
Because
teams in the
Florida's
mix here.
guaranteed a spot. So you either have to break Florida first, or you break Sin City, Fort Worth, Detroit first. You have to do one of those three,
yeah.
or one of those two.
Florida's first for sure because Florida didn't play all those
Mm-hmm.
teams. So for sure they're the 10, but you're right, Hack, that Sin City, Fort Worth, Detroit is something that we...
There's no head-to-head sweeps for either team. Fort Worth defeated Detroit, but they didn't play Sin City. Sin City beat Detroit, but didn't play Fort Worth.
So because there's no head-to-head, Detroit's out on common games, which is what we saw last time, 1 and 2. And then Sin City and Fort Worth did not play. And so, you remove them, and then Sin City is 4 and 2, and Fort Worth is 2 and 4.
Yep.
That look right, Hack?
That looks good.
Yep. So Detroit is Detroit's your loser tonight. Baltimore, 50% chance, win and in. Pittsburgh, win, and they are the number 2 seed. No question about that. Lose, and Pittsburgh falls to 6, 7, 7, 6, depending upon what happens in the looks like in the Vancouver Sin City game. If Vancouver wins, they'd be the 6. If Sin City wins, they would be the 7. So Pittsburgh has a first-round bye on the line. Baltimore has a playoff spot on the line. So that's an interesting note for them. Let's see. You've got Sin City's the 10 or the 9 or the 11 or the 9 or the 11 or the 9. So Sin City is going on the road in the opening round of the playoffs, but in 4 different scenarios, 2, 4, 6, and 8, Sin City and Arizona would be your first round playoff matchup. In scenario 1, 3, 5, and 7, Arizona and Chicago would be your 8-9 matchup. One thing that has been confirmed is that Arizona is the 8th seed. In all 8 scenarios, Arizona gets a first-round home playoff game, and they are going to be your 8. Fort Worth, they have a 50% chance of making the playoffs. That would be taking Baltimore's spot. If Pittsburgh wins, Fort Worth is in the playoffs. If Baltimore wins, Baltimore is in the playoffs. So the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game is affecting Fort Worth's opportunity at the postseason. And Fort Worth could play Houston, Washington, Vancouver. Washington's the most likely opponent at a 25% chance, but that's not. I mean, that's just a dart at a dartboard right there. So Fort Worth cheering for Pittsburgh tomorrow night. Chicago is the 9 or the 10. In all these scenarios, they're going to be on the road. How about Denver? They could be the 7 or the 5. It is all dependent upon who wins between Pittsburgh and Baltimore. If Pittsburgh wins, Denver is the 7 seed. If Baltimore wins, Denver is the 5 seed. Either way, Denver will host a first-round playoff game next week. How about Houston? In 50% of the scenarios, they are the 4 seed and get a first-round bye. Those scenarios include all sorts of different combinations, essentially, that would get them to the 4 seed. If not, Houston can also be the 3 seed, but in scenario 1 and scenario 5, that is the worst scenario for Houston. They would be the 5 seed and have to play in the first round against either Carolina or spicy Fort Worth in a 5-12 matchup in scenario 5. Who gets the number 1 seed? Mexico City has a 50% chance of doing that. Vancouver, a 25% chance. DC, has Vancouver a 37.5% chance, and DC has one scenario 3, in which they get the top seed, but they have clinched a first-round bye. Washington has a chance at a first-round bye, a 25% chance. They need Baltimore and Sin City to win in order to wrap that up. Otherwise, Washington could be the 7, they could be the 5, they could be the 6, but either way, they will have a first-round home playoff game. Florida is in with a win, out with a loss. Carolina is in with a win and out with a loss. And in all the scenarios for Carolina, they would be the 12, playing either Houston, Washington, or Denver in the first round. I miss anybody? Any spicy first? Go ahead, Hack.
I said, looks like you got it.
Any spicy first round matchups y'all are looking at that you'd be excited about? I look at that scenario 7, and I think, wow, that is really interesting. Denver versus Baltimore, Pittsburgh versus Sin City, a couple of teams under new leadership and coaches that are sort of new to the fold in a way. Florida, Washington is really interesting, and then Arizona, Chicago. But how about scenario 8, the 10-7, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Vancouver, Florida? Those two teams have a lot of history in the postseason. Those are spicy. A $5 super chat from Mark Lopez. Shout out to 4 West Division teams making it into the playoffs this season. New best division of the league, says Mark, shooting his shot.
He had to pay $5 for somebody to say that, and I'll leave it at that.
Nice. Good comeback. Who's the team? Any Cinderellas, guys and gals, in this field that you think they could make a run? Any first round playoff
Carolina.
upsets?
Carolina with a few different ways to get back in this one. Not to toot our own horn or nothing, but either playing Denver, Houston, or Washington in that regard.
Who would you want?
Oh gosh,
I'd want Houston right now. Losers are 2 straight.
Yeah.
when you look at it on paper, that's probably the best way to look at it. Is Houston coming on a down track, we're coming on a much more upward trajectory. So I'd hate to play Washington or Denver, because Washington, that new coaching staff, I've touted them throughout this entire season and on multiple different broadcasts. Washington looks much better, much more improved over the last few seasons. Houston, there's always that split second for me. It's like, well, they're good, but there's always something that's not quite clicking with Houston. So who knows? Maybe they've got something figured out for postseason, but right now it's they are the weakest link if Carolina's coming to town.
Scenario 5, Florida at Denver. A rematch of two past championship games that were some of the best games in league history. That would be nuts. Absolutely nuts. Fort Worth would play Houston, Washington, or Vancouver. Who do you not want to play?
I think we'd be thrilled at any of those. We'd get another shot at Houston and Washington. I think we'd love that. And Vancouver has early on in our tenure, they were known to bounce us out of the playoffs. So we kind of got over the playoff hump once or twice against them. So it'd be nice to face them again in the playoffs. So we're just happy to be in the show. We were had to reload after last season. So to be where we are, we feel really fortunate, and we're just happy to see how the next couple of days shake out.
Man, it's going to be fun. Chicago, Arizona potentially is the 8-9 game as well. You've got some big personalities there with Ty Patak and Ashley Jackson under center. 2 totally different philosophies. And as we all know, the playbooks pare down. You had 2 over the last 3 games. You can only take 1 into the playoffs. How are these teams going to decide? Are they going to decide based on that first round matchup, or are they going to try to get out of the first round and prep for the second? What do you do as a coach there if you have a decision to make? Some of these teams have already made that decision down the stretch. So all I know is on the one hand, Tyler, I want to get your opinion on this. On the one hand, if you play Baltimore, you have to figure out how to stop Ivory Irvin. But on the other hand, they are depleted. They got a lot of inactives, and they, look a little checked out. So what's a more difficult challenge? Finally killing the birds that feast off the dead, or just trying to, I guess, take advantage of an opponent that just really isn't on it right now.
I mean, the cool thing about this is I get to call this game tomorrow evening. So this is going to be a fun one to watch, especially from Pittsburgh. I think the big storyline is, as you mentioned, is Pittsburgh going to take the reins? Are they going to be the new team on the block that says to the stalwarts, your time has passed, we're going to step over the chop down tree that you are? Or is Baltimore going to say, we've got one last run in us, we may be down, but we're still the same old team that won so many championships in the past? So there's a lot of little storylines coming to this game. But I think if you're Pittsburgh and you want that first round bye, you come in playing hard. And for me, I would expect Baltimore to give us one last good show of it. Win or lose, we're going to see some very good football. I should say, yeah, tonight.
Tomorrow.
We'll see some really good football tonight.
Tonight, yeah. And it feels like the SFL universe hangs in the balance with Baltimore and Pittsburgh, right? It's the new age Riverhogs, and it's the old school Vultures, and eventually it'll be Pittsburgh's time. But will it be tomorrow, or tonight, or will Baltimore give it one last go? That'll be interesting to see. Sin City, I think one of the things that comes out of this night is that even if Sin City loses on Monday, they are still in the playoffs, and yes. Sin City is going to be on the road no matter what. They're going to play either Washington, Arizona, Denver, any other possible, Pittsburgh. So they have a lot of different opponents they could play, but Sin City's in. They're just playing for seeding. The real storyline on Monday night is who is going to win the West. Is it going to be Vancouver taking care of business, or is it going to be Washington, surging back with a couple of unbelievable photo finishes to claim that division and put Vancouver down? If we didn't talk about Vancouver specifically, but if Vancouver wins in 75% of the scenarios, they are the number 1 seed. The only reason why they wouldn't is if Carolina and Baltimore also win. But if Vancouver loses, they are the 6th seed in all of those different scenarios. They would play either Florida or Fort Worth or Baltimore. Either way, I don't think Vancouver would be very happy about that draw in any regard. So they want to take care of business against Sin City on Monday night. Wrap up the division. It won't be for the number 1 spot unless things fall their way. They do have I stand corrected. They would have a 75% chance at the number 1 spot. So that's a big difference. Home field advantage throughout, or playing a very difficult opponent in the first round. So a lot on the line tomorrow and Monday. Any final thoughts, panel?
I'm excited about tomorrow night.
Same here. Looking forward to calling Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and just watching one more night of good football before Monday night and playoffs.
All right, everyone. Hey, thanks to Stephen Hacker, Rochelle Colston, and Tyler Falk hanging out with me. Hey, an hour and a half. Not too bad as we get our 8 scenarios done and we ready for the SFL playoffs here in season 25. Have a great night, everybody, and thanks for sticking with us.
Yep, good night, everybody.